Okie dokie, so you had time to practice. Let's see what the domain is. The domain, I'm going to put a little d. My domain for this, I only use x values from here or this way. So this time I'm going to put x is greater than or equal to this value of a 1. Why do I know it's greater than 1? Because I can think of these values as 2, 3, 4. Those are greater than 1, not less than it. So there's my domain. My domain for this is x is greater than or equal to 1. Now, what about the range? This goes up forever. It goes down forever, down and to the right. I'm going both of those, so I'm going to use all reals for the range. Hopefully that makes sense. And if you didn't understand that, you can ask somebody around you to explain it to you in a minute. All right. Now that you guys understand that, we're going to get to the meat and potatoes of this unit. When I say meat and potatoes, what I'm basically saying is this is the crux. This is where if you were absent today, you would be lost. It's a good thing you're paying attention, because you would be lost if you didn't see this stuff. So let's talk about vertex form. Vertex form is one of those things that looks like this. Mean and scary. But it's not. It's really easy to use. Real easy. So I just have to know a couple of things. Let me show you. It's a formula. We have two formulas here. Y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. Or I have y minus k equals a times x minus h squared. We pretty much use the first one, but every now and then we use the second one. This is the one we need to have you memorize. Here's an easy way to memorize it. You're always extra happy with 2 or more kisses. I know. I'm sorry. But I don't apologize for who I am. Okay. So just like, let's go back to this. Let's connect this to what you've already done before. Do you remember way back in the when you learned y equals mx plus b? You learned what m stood for. M was the slope. And b was the y-intercept. Hopefully that rings a bell. And you basically learned that anything in this form, y equals 2x plus 1, you could tell me what the slope was and the y-intercept. Okay? You could tell me that. That's the same thing that's going to happen for vertex form. If I know what certain things are, what certain letters mean, I'm going to know exactly what I'm looking for. So let me show you what I mean. Here's an equation. Okay, I have my basic equation up top, but here's my first problem. My first problem is y equals 2 times x plus 3 squared minus 1. If I know what h and k stand for, I just might know what the vertex is. Remember how I told you that there are 2 parts that you're supposed to know for every parabola, for every quadratic? You're supposed to know 2 parts. You're supposed to remember how to find the vertex, how to find the line of symmetry or the axis of symmetry. So if I can do that without doing any work, that's what I want to do. I want to do it with no work, and I'm pretty sure you're the same way. So here we go. H and K are the vertex coordinates. Notice that here the H is a positive H and the K is a positive K. So if I look at this formula, when you see a negative sign, just like the quadratic formula, remember we said negative b? Instead of saying negative b, I said it's the opposite of b. So that's the same thing here. I want you to think of this negative sign as the opposite, and this plus sign as the same. That's important. I have to know whether I'm dealing with opposite same Or in the other form, opposite, opposite, and I'll explain more in just a second. This here is my h. Why is this my h? Hold on, because it's the one that's next to the x inside the squared term. Here's the squared term. This is the one that's next to the x, just like that one is. The only thing I have to remember is this formula, it's supposed to be the opposite. So that means instead of h being a positive 3, the opposite of a positive 3 is a negative 3. So what does that mean? That means that my vertex has an x-coordinate of the opposite of positive 3, negative 3. That's what happens. The lights just went out. I'm sorry. I guess I didn't move enough and they went off. Okay. So now, that's what h is. So what is k going to be? K is the y-coordinate of the vertex. Here's my x-coordinate, here's my y-coordinate, but we're going to call it h and k. We can think of h as the horizontal shift and k as the vertical shift. So what's k in this problem? K is the negative 1. Now, do I use the opposite or the same? Hopefully you know it's the same because we're adding a number outside of the square term. We're adding or subtracting a number outside the square term. So my vertex for this problem was negative 3, negative 1. And that means I know exactly where that's going to be graphed. I can go to negative 3, negative 1 and plot that. I know where it's going to be. I'll talk with you about how it opens up or down in just a second. But there's our first thing that we had to know. The second thing we had to know was what was the axis of symmetry? Well, without doing any work, I know that that's the same thing as the x-coordinate. It always goes through the x-coordinate when we have parabolas that open upwards and downwards. We are only going to be focusing on parabolas that open upwards or downwards in this unit. So make it a little easier for you. So our answer for our axis of symmetry, our line of symmetry, is x equals negative 3. Okay? So now, this is how I find the vertex. This is how I find the axis of symmetry. It's the x-coordinate. Let's do a separate problem and have you try it on your whiteboards. Here's the problem. It says y minus 1 equals negative 2 times, in parentheses, x minus 1 squared. I want you to label or find the vertex, and I want you to label and find the axis of symmetry, hopefully with no work, by just knowing what each letter represents. Try it and show the teacher, please.